What's up everyone, Darcblade here with a Shinobi guide to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. In this first episode we are going to be going over the basics of the game, hopefully helping newcomers and veterans alike. Whilst Sekiro bears many similarities to other From Software games, there are new mechanics and moves that you have to learn. In some respects, veterans of the Dark Souls, Demon Souls and Bloodborne games may have to reprogram themselves just as I did. As well, yes, some mechanics are the same, there are numerous differences. So let's get into the video and first talk about our UI. The UI of Sekiro is very clean and minimalistic. First, up in the top left, you will see your enemy's health bar. Depending if it's a boss, mini-boss or normal troop, there will be a few differences. For example, if it's a mini-boss or an actual boss, there will be red pips above the health bar. There will also be a name displayed underneath the health bar. These pips above the health bar represent how many death blows an enemy can withstand before defeating it. But we'll talk about death blows when we talk about the controls. Anyway, in the top center, when you're fighting mini-bosses or bosses, will be your enemy's posture gauge. As you deal damage and deflect attacks, this will gradually fill up. Once it maxes out, then you'll be able to perform one of those aforementioned death blows on your opponent. Your enemy can recover its posture through certain means, but the lower your enemy's health, the more difficult it is to regenerate their posture. Now when you're fighting normal grunts and that, their posture bar and health bar will instead be displayed over their heads, rather than at the top of the screen. Now moving on to the bottom left, you'll see your health bar, and above it various circles. Your health bar is pretty self-explanatory, this is the amount of health you have, and when it reaches 0, you die. The pink circles above it though, are the amount of times you can resurrect yourself. Now upon death, you're able to resurrect yourself once to try to continue the fight, and it will consume one of these pink circles. Afterwards it will be on cooldown. However, the amount of circles you have indicate the amount of times you can resurrect, but there's more to it. For example, if you're fighting a boss and you use your resurrection, there'll be a black streak through the circles, as you can only resurrect on an encounter once. Now I say encounters because boss fights have different phases, and say for example you resurrect on phase 1 of a boss, the pink resurrection dots will be blacked out. You defeat the boss though and you go into phase 2 and the pink resurrection dots will become available again, although one of them will be on cooldown as you've already used one of the resurrects in phase 1. Now I hope that explains that mechanic, but as you play the game you'll get more and more used to it. Anyway, in the bottom center is your posture bar. This is pretty much exactly the same as the enemy posture bar at the top, but as you block and deflect attacks or take hits, your posture will go up. Once your posture breaks, you'll be left wide open. Although there are ways to get out of this and recover your own posture, which we'll talk about in the controls. And then finally, on the bottom right is your inventory items. This includes your consumable items, which are on the left, your prosthetic items, which are located in the middle, and on your right, you'll have indicators for your combat skill, ninjutsu skill, and the amount of spirit emblems you have. But we'll talk about those when we talk about the inventory and skill system. So that's the UI. Let's move on to talk about the basic controls. Now I am going to be talking about controller, quoting both PlayStation and Xbox controllers. Personally, I feel From Software games are better played with a controller than mouse and keyboard, but that is a personal preference, as mouse and keyboard are perfectly viable, but I'm not that experienced with mouse and keyboard when it comes to the From Software titles. So first of all, obviously you have your movement, which is done with the left stick. You can push in the left stick to crouch and enter stealth mode. Pushing it again will exit stealth mode. The right stick is used to move the camera around, as well as pushing it in to lock on to nearby enemies. Once you're actually locked into an enemy, you can press left and right on the right stick to cycle through the enemies you can target and who are within range. Whilst in other games such as Bloodborne, I didn't find locking on that important. In Sekiro, locking on definitely comes in handy for the duels. Now when it comes to the D-pad, pressing left and right will cycle through your consumable items, and up on the D-pad will actually use whatever consumable you have selected. So this is what you're going to be using to heal Sekiro. You can also, when prompted and locked onto a target, press down on the D-pad to eavesdrop on enemies. This will give you vital information as well as tips and tricks to how to take on future bosses, events and so on. There'll be a clear indicator when you're able to eavesdrop, as it will say eavesdrop over your targeted enemy. Now onto the face buttons. X or A is used to jump. Now you can actually double jump, but this is only done when you're actually jumping into walls and such. So it's more of a wall jump than a double jump. You can also press X as well and a direction if your posture is broken to roll out of the way of incoming attacks. Next is circle or B. This is used to step dodge, or you hold it down to cause Sekiro to sprint. Again, when your posture is broke, you can also use circle to roll out of the way of incoming attacks. Square or X is used as the action button to interact with various items or NPCs. If you hold down square or X as well, it will suck up all nearby items and loot dropped from enemy corpses. So you don't actually have to go up to a corpse to get the loot off of it. And then finally it's triangle or Y. This is to cycle through your various prosthetic tools. Pretty straightforward. Now as for the shoulder buttons, first of all you have deflect or guard. This is done by pressing L1 or LB. Holding down the button will actually cause Sekiro to guard against all incoming attacks, but this will cause your posture gauge to fill up quite substantially when you take a hit. However, if there's a respite in an enemy's attack, just holding the guard down will actually help decrease the posture bar quickly, then dropping your guard altogether. This is quite different from, say, Dark Souls, where holding up your shield will actually prevent your stamina from recovering at a quick rate. And L1 or LB is also used for deflection. If you time your guard correctly and press the button at the last moment, you would deflect the attack, similar to parrying in previous games. This will cause massive posture damage to the enemy's posture gauge. It will also give you a small window where you can attack back, but depending on the enemy you are facing, this window can be incredibly small to the point where it's not worth going for a follow-up attack straight away. Anyway, moving on to L2 or LT. This controls your grappling hook. Your prosthetic arm has a built-in grappling hook that can be used multiple times to traverse the environment. When you're looking around the environment, you'll see circles highlighted on the environment, indicating that it's a grapple point. Once you're in range and it turns green, then pressing L2 or LT will allow Sekiro to grapple to that location, or even use it as a swinging point. Sekiro, compared to other Souls games, is very unique in that there is a lot of vertical traversal, making it quite an open game. So getting used to using the grapple hook is key. It's also one of the most enjoyable aspects of this game. Anyway, moving on to R1 or RB. This is used to attack. This is your attack button. You can attack as much as you want, as Sekiro doesn't actually have a stamina bar, unlike other From Software games, which also applies to when you're sprinting around. So attack to your heart's content, although when you are facing enemies, attacking mindlessly is not always the best option. You can also hold in R1 or RB to charge up your attack, which will cause more damage or posture damage to an opponent. Of course, you leave yourself a little bit open when you're actually performing the charge up move, but nonetheless, it's a move worth learning. Also, R1 or RB is used to perform your Shinobi death blows. Shinobi death blows can be performed in multiple ways. First of all, you can sneak up behind an enemy using stealth. Once you're close enough to an enemy, there'll be a red highlight on them, indicating that you can perform the Shinobi death blow, which will kill an enemy outright unless they have red circles above their health bar, such as mini bosses and normal bosses. You can also perform the Shinobi death blow by breaking an enemy's posture, which is key when you're taking on an enemy head on. Next is R2 or RT. This button controls the use of your prosthetic tool. Whatever tool you have equipped, pressing RT will allow you to use that prosthetic tool. Be aware though that prosthetic tools, no matter what one you're using, use up various amounts of spirit emblems indicated in the bottom right, which are pretty much akin to Quicksilver bullets found in Bloodborne. And then finally, with the basic controls, you have L1 and R1. This is used to perform whatever combat art you have equipped in your inventory. Combat arts are normally harder hitting moves or have special functions. As you progress through the game, you'll earn more and more combat arts via the talent trees that Sekiro has, or through defeating certain bosses. Lastly, L1 and R1 or LB or RB do have a function upon death. When you die for the first time, you can either press L1 to stay dead and then you'll respawn at the nearest idol, as if you had died twice, or you can press R1 to resurrect so long as you have the resurrection pink icons available. Now the last step of this beginner's guide is to quickly go through your equipment screen. Now in your equipment, by either pressing start or options, you'll see you can have up to 3 prosthetic tools equipped. As you press triangle or Y, you will cycle through these 3. So don't forget to change them up to whatever the upcoming encounter entails. Next are your combat arts. As I just explained, these are done by pressing L1 and R1 or LB and RB. These are normally the harder hitting combat moves that are normally learnt from talent trees. Underneath that is the ninjutsu skills. You unlock ninjutsu skills as you progress through the game. These are skills that allow certain effects to be applied to your stealth shinobi death blows. So backstabs, and they're always activated by pressing attack a second time after the Shinobi death blow backstab. You'll also get an indicator of an even bigger, darker red indicator on your enemy when you can perform the ninjutsu move. For example, the first one you get will allow you to create a cloud of red smoke from your enemy's blood, allowing you to remain hidden after the attack. Anyway, next to the ninjutsu skill are your quick items. These are pretty much the same as in any Dark Souls game. You can swap in and out quick items and then cycle through them when you're in game by using the D-pad. Underneath that you have your health gauge as well as your resurrection pips, your unseen aid, which is a new mechanic to Sekiro. Basically, unseen aid gives you a percentage chance of not losing your coins or experience when you die, but it doesn't kick in all the time, and the more often you die, the lower this will get. Next to that you'll have your vitality and attack points. This is pretty straightforward. Vitality increases your health as well as your posture gauge, and attack power increases how strong your attacks are. Next to that you have your skill points. The number next to the bar is how many skill points have been banked, so you cannot lose these, and the blue bar itself upon death will be reduced by half, so that's something to be aware of. Next to that as well you have your spirit emblems, and underneath that is the amount of cash you have available. Upon death as well, the amount of money you are carrying will also be halved. Now whilst your experience and cash will be halved, unlike other Souls games there's no way of getting it back. The only protection you have against it is, of course, the unseen aid, but this isn't active all the time. Now when I say you lose this upon death, I mean upon death, not death then you resurrect. This is normally on death, you resurrect, and then you die again. That's it, you'll lose half the progress of your experience bar and your money. Now a lot of this may be common sense to a lot of you out there, but I hope in some small way this small guide helps, especially if you're just thinking about picking up Sekiro for the first time. Also don't forget to check back soon as I'll be bringing you more Sekiro guides, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a beginner's guide to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.